Breaking story of the hour, the Tamil Nadu government has ordered permanent closure of the Sterile plant in Thoothukudi. Jude Sanith, our correspondent who's tracked every leg of this development this past few days, is joining us with details on this breaking news. Jude, thanks so much for joining in. And what exactly is the update? What are you picking up from the government order?
Okay, the audio line is a little patchy, but yes, like you rightly mentioned, there's been some communication from the Chief Minister's office of Tamil Nadu. Chief Minister E.K. Palanisamy has mentioned that in keeping with Jayalalitha's motto of running a government for and of the people, the wishes of the people of Tuticorin have been adhered to, and in keeping with what the people and the protesters, more specifically of that district, want, the government has said that steps will be taken to permanently close the Sterile copper plant in Tuticorin. This is huge, especially considering that there's been over 100 days of protests within the state itself. What we are hearing is that a government order to this effect is currently being worked on. Initial steps are already being taken, and we are also given to understand that this happens just a few days after the Tamil Nadu Pollution Control Board had also issued directions to close the plant itself owing to environmental violations. So the Tamil Nadu government going on to clarify that they intend to permanently shut the Sterile copper plant, and that's breaking news coming in at this hour.
Absolutely, Jude. We did see Deputy Chief Minister also indicate that, there will be no option but for the plant to be permanently shut down. And you did mention that the Pollution Control Board has been calling for it as well. So does this mean the end of the road as far as the copper smelter plant in Tuticorin goes? We're definitely going to see no chance of it functioning. This is, in fact, a permanent shutdown of that plant. Is that categorically become clear with this government order?
Well, at least with regard to the government side, there is, of course, every indication that this government intends to do something to that effect. However, some of the matter is, of course, sub judice with regard to whether or not the plant is effluent generating or not. There are, of course, observations made by the Tamil Nadu Pollution Control Board, which points to major violations on the environmental front with regard to the plant itself, with the Tamil Nadu government also following up on that and in keeping with these observations, stating that there is indeed a case for the permanent closure of this plant. Also going on to say that if that's what the people of Thoothukudi or Tuticorin rather decide, it ought to happen. But more interestingly, this also comes at a time when the electricity to the plant has been cut off so as to ensure that there is no activity within the plant itself. Remember, the expansion of the plant has also been put on a hold by way of an interim order of the Madurai bench of the Madras High Court. So even while there is, of course, a stay on activity and expansion of the Sterile copper plant, the government of Tamil Nadu seems to be leaving no stone unturned towards ensuring that as far as its end of the bargain is concerned, as far as its side is concerned, there is well and truly going to be a permanent closure. But of course, the courts will have to take it forward with regard to whether or not this government order is binding on Sterile copper.
Absolutely. In fact, Jude, for the benefit of our viewers, Sterile Copper does run a 400,000-ton capacity plant in Thoothukudi. And we did see, Jude, last week when you did visit Tuticorin, what was the scene there really? Because we did talk about, the death toll of close to 13, over 47 injured. The environmental calamity was large, and you were the one who was on the ground studying the impact of this. So take us through a recap of what exactly you witnessed when you were reporting from Thoothukudi just last week, and what will this government order then mean, keeping that in mind?
Well, like we have been watching in the course of the last week, when I landed in Tuticorin, what we were met with were the scores of injured people, in addition to, of course, 13 who had died by way of one of the worst cases of human rights abuse in Tamil Nadu, wherein a group of policemen shot at a group of protesters, not just in one location, but in two separate locations within the Tuticorin district. One, of course, on the main road in the town centre, and, of course, at the district collectorate. In fact, we also got news a little earlier in the day that a police FIR report has named two government officials, both of the rank of a deputy Tahsildar, as having issued the orders to fire on the group of protesters. The FIR states that initial firing was, of course, done by way of warning the protesters and also by way of ensuring self-preservation of police forces, given the fact that there was every risk of that protest turning violent. In fact, the FIR names two government officials by the name of Kannan and Shekhar as having issued those government orders, with regard to police firing itself. So what we are seeing essentially is a face-off between the police and, of course, public that has continued well into several days after the initial incident itself. So, you know, in continuation of that, of course, this breaking news coming in.
Yes. Thank you, Jude. It's definitely a huge blow indeed for Sterlite Copper. But let's bring in Palash Mukherjee from CSE, who's joining us for his initial reaction to the government order in Tamil Nadu. Mr. Palash, thanks so much for joining us. And we hear that the government has ordered permanent shutting down of that copper smelter in Tuticorin. Your initial reaction to this government order, pretty much in line, like Jude mentioned, with what the Pollution Control Board wanted as well just a few days ago.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, in this particular case, all the environmental norms had been violated, and the issue of EIA existed from not just like a year or two ago, but up to 5 years, 6 years ago. So this is something that scrutiny should have been done long ago, but right now, when the order has been declared, the consent to establish has been cancelled by the government of Tamil Nadu for this particular establishment. While this is this will help a lot in this particular case, there must be steps taken to see that something like this does not happen anywhere else in the country.
Absolutely, Mr. Palash. But do you think that this is pretty much the end of this? Because we are, expecting that the company itself will actually challenge this order. But as far as, the environmental impact is concerned, do you think that the government order, and we did see Deputy Chief Minister ask for it as well, this is definitely a step in the right direction?
No, I mean, in terms of the future of the company, perhaps that this is a step in the right direction, but it must be taken care that whatever harm to the environment and to the lives of these protesters has been done, that must be rectified. The polluter pays principle must be applied in this case, where the company must be pulled up not just for the environmental damage it's caused, but also the social unrest that has come down on the town of Tuticorin because of this incident.
Well, are we seeing the final say as far as the Tuticorin incident goes? Because we are expecting peace to restore. In fact, the last couple of days have actually been pretty peaceful in Tuticorin, is what our correspondent from there, Jude Sana, just told us a few minutes ago. So are we expecting then that the end of the copper smelter in Tuticorin, as well as peace being restored to the city permanently then?
Now, this will, I mean, like you said, I'm sure that the company will fight this in the courts. It depends on what the court's final verdict is. But as far as Tamil Nadu government and the State Pollution Control Board stand is, that's become clear by today's order, that they don't want this plant to continue anymore. And this is something that CSE has been asking for as part of its press release as well. I mean, there must be scrutiny on the circumstances under which the company was given the permission to operate in the first place.
Absolutely, Mr. Palash. Thank you so much for taking time off. And like he mentioned, like Jude has also been bringing us details of that government order. Definitely a huge blow indeed for Sterlite Copper. We are indicating that the government order has categorically said it will be a permanent closure of that copper smelter in Tuticorin, which has seen a lot of environmental impact in that area. And we did see a lot of agitation the past week. It's definitely a big blow for the company. But the government, as well as the Tamil Nadu government, as well as the PCB, standing strong in its demand for permanent closure of that plant. We will have to await reactions from the company. Remember, Sterlite Copper is run by Vedanta, so we will be awaiting confirmation, of course, from the company on receiving this order and what it plans to do next. That will be very crucial. Like we just mentioned, we're talking about 400,000 tons or being the capacity of that copper smelter in Tuticorin. So definitely a huge blow indeed for the company. But, like we mentioned, it's something that the Tamil Nadu government seems to refuse to budge on for the moment, at least.